how you get power in your punches comes from many different aspects. Power is mass times velocity. So velocity is the speed of the punch, and mass is the sort of the weight of the punch, and that comes from your technique. So it's really important for me to touch on that element in this video. It comes from a few different elements which I'm going to cover. So let's look at technique of a punch. So for example, when you're throwing a cross or a jab, you're really utilizing the whole of your body and your shoulders through that. So I've got my little chair friend here, just to sort of show you a bit of visualization. Now, if I'm sitting down on the chair and I'm throwing a ball, I'm using my upper body. Now, I might be really strong up here, and I'm still getting quite a leverage and a length on that ball throw. But actually, if I was to stand up and utilize my whole body through that punch rather than just my arms, I'm going to get so much more power out of throwing that ball. Look at any sort of baseball players. They're not sat down, they're throwing it, they're using the whole of their body to get that power through on that ball. And it's the same with punching. To get that power, you really need to use the whole of your body. That's what it's there for. And it's not just about having sort of big, strong shots. It's also about saving energy. So when you're fighting, you're not just arm punching the whole time and then you're blowing out your arms. You're utilizing your hips and your legs and your shoulders and your back with the punches so that you're saving energy, but each shot is going to be powerful. Thinking about going back to throwing the ball sat down, if I was to throw the cross, and we've covered this on the videos, I'm turning my hip, I'm turning my foot, I'm turning my shoulder, I'm using everything through that. I'm not just arm punching, I'm turning through for power. And it's the same when you're throwing the hook, I'm turning through for power. I'm using my hips. I'm not just throwing it like this, which is my arm punches, and the same on the uppercuts. I'm using the power from my hips to come up through with the punches with the hips. So just talking about the technique, so working on your boxing technique is really, really important to make sure that you're utilizing the whole of your body. You're not too close to the subject that you're trying to punch, whether it be a pad or a person or a bag, because that smothers your shots. You want to get those shots longer so you get more power through, because then you're going to utilize the shoulders and the back more efficiently. So really work on the technique of each shot. Rather than if someone's standing with a pair of pads in front of you or got the bag thinking about powering up. In fact, what you're doing is you're wasting energy and you're losing power. You've got to be very clever in boxing to utilize the technique through on each shot. The next thing I want to kind of move on to is your speed of each shot. So when you're throwing like a long combination, for example, rather than it just being speedy hands, there's no real power there. There's speed, yeah, but you really want to get the power behind that shot as well. So each shot as an individual needs to be as fast as it possibly can, but you need to get it together in a rhythm so you can get power through each shot. Don't rush those combinations. Think about every shot meaning something. It'd be a meaningful shot. That's really important to do. And it's also important to work on the timing and the accuracy of those shots that you're throwing, and that comes from your pad work and doing the pad work, etc. So really when you're thinking about punching on the bag on your own, or shadow boxing, or doing pads, really think about, am I getting absolute explosive power through each shot? So every time I throw something, I'm just doing this, I'm like, ah, ah, ah. Each shot there is coming from a powerful, explosive way. It's explosive fashion that I'm throwing every single shot, singularly, even when I'm doing it in a big combination. So really think about that when you're doing even your own work on the bag. Boxing is a beautiful, it's like meditation. You've got to be really mindful of every single shot you throw, and that's where the power and the explosiveness comes from through on those shots. The other element you really need to work on is getting a structured strength program. We sort of design programs with periodization, so you wouldn't be doing like real hard strength work outside the boxing season. So when you're not really having any sparring or fighting, do that for maybe 4 or 6 week period, then moving on to sort of explosive power work. So when you're doing the explosive power weights, you may be doing 7 reps, but each rep, you're pausing between each rep, and then each rep of the weight that you're throwing, so you're doing, if you just say you're doing bench press or single arm, you want to pause between every single repetition, just fractionally, and then power up, then pause. And you want to get the tempo of the weights right. Weights don't slow you down if they're done right. If you're just doing pure strength work and 5 reps and 3 reps, and you just want to get beefy or hypertrophy, that's not going to help your boxing. When you're nearer, to say if you're coming up to a fight, when you're coming nearer to a fight, you need to be keeping the weights explosive. So resting between each shot. So imagine you were just throwing a jab, for example, rather than just standing doing that. That's going to give you endurance conditioning, but it's not going to give you power. That's 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 going to give you power. Not doing this. And it's the same when you're doing weights. Pause fractionally in between each repetition. Just want to quickly touch on as well punching with weights. It's not good for your joints. If you're punching with a weight in your hand, it's not going to give you more power. Because what you're doing is you've got a weight at the end of your arm, you're punching with it. If you're punching with absolute power while you're doing it, you're taking your joint further than it should be tested. So therefore, you're putting a lot of stress on your elbows and your shoulder joint, which then can increase the chance of you becoming injured, which is not good. If you want to do some sort of resistant work on your punches, use a resistance band, because it just gives you much more support and it won't allow you to overextend that arm whilst you're punching. Everybody knows if you're punching, you overextend, it hurts. But can you imagine if you've got a weight on the end of that and how much damage that is going to do to your joints? So just bear that in mind. When you're working on power, don't use weights to punch, please. Get a structured weight program. So when you're coming closer to fighting or sparring, or even just sort of periodizing your training programs, you do 4 weeks of strength, some explosive power, mixing your training up is very important. Working on boxing skill set and technique to make sure your timing and your accuracy is spot on is really important, and making sure each shot you throw is thrown with intention and purpose, but also each shot explosive power, even when you're throwing longer combinations. But remember, each shot's quick, but together as a combination, it's thrown as a nice rhythm. I'll go more into rhythm and combinations on another video.